Hello and welcome to Dig It. I'm Peter Brown and hosting the show with me today is Chris Day. Hi Chris.
Hi Peter.
Wow, April in the garden. We're in the middle of spring now, are we, Chris?
That's what they say, mid-spring, and it can be a cruel month though, can't it, Peter?
Honestly, I was looking through the pictures on my telephone the other day, and okay, we're obviously recording this a week before April, but there was snow.
There was.
A couple of years ago. It was like, I was in the park on my sledge, but I haven't managed it this year.
So far, so good. But and it's a combination of that and the temperature differences and those winds we get, which, as we're recording today, is a breezy day. And that's the thing; it's drying the soil out. We've not had too much rain through March, although we've had a bit more than we probably expected.
Yeah, it's been a very dry winter, but I'd say, March was, every time I wanted to go out and mow the lawn, I couldn't get out there because it was too wet, but equally it seems to be drying up again now, and apologies to our listeners if the wind's whistling away in the background. It's a bit windy today, but c'est la vie.
But the good news is, though, Peter, everything's growing, isn't it? The bulbs are looking good, the plants are breaking dormant. I noticed my wonderful Japanese maples are starting to break, but which is always exciting. So it's spring is definitely it has definitely arrived.
Well, daffodils are out, like you say, and the leaves are just. I saw my neighbour's magnolia's now got about half a dozen flowers on it, and that's always and the dandelions are growing in my lawn, which is always a good sign that it's time to get planting seeds, isn't it?
That's right. And of course, the garden centre, we're obviously a lot busier now. A lot of the fair weather gardeners are venturing out, which is always a good sign. And but there's plenty to be getting on with.
Definitely. So, what do we got going on at the moment then, Chris?
So, what's on-wise, it's a fairly quiet start to the month for events. However, on the 1st and 2nd of April, Cornwall Garden Society Spring Show. So, if you're in that part of the world, down in the Royal Cornwall Showground down in lovely Wadebridge, they've got a nice event happening over those 2 days. And then there's lots of plant fairs. We've mentioned plant fairs before, haven't we, Peter? And we've got a few, actually, again, on the same 1st and 2nd of April over at Great Dixter, obviously the gardens down of the late Christopher Lloyd. Just down the road from the garden centre here, it's the Evenley Wood Rare Plant Fair on the 2nd of April. And then we've got over at Arundel Castle, the Spring Fair Roadshow on the 23rd. So some really good, and of course these are really good events for plantaholics.
Go and find the weird and the wonderful.
Most indeed. And then obviously as we get towards the end of April, we've got some big shows. These are the big hitting shows, which are good. And of course we chatted to Martin Fish last year about his involvement with the Harrogate Spring Flower Show. Well, you'll probably find Martin there over the 20th to the 23rd of April. It's their big event. And of course they've got show gardens, plant nurseries, floral art and such like, and lots of live entertainment. So that's at the Great Yorkshire Showground. And then the following week we've got the BBC Gardeners World Spring Fair. This is a new flower show over in Bewley on the wonderful New Forest down in Hampshire. So plenty some nice things to think about towards the end of this month.
Yeah, because we've got Spring Fair in the garden centre industry where we all trek up to the NEC and see what's going. Well, it's the last of the Christmas buying you do there, and then see what's good for summer and what have you. But this is obviously a more garden-orientated one for the public, so that's good.
Yes,
nice to see that.
And certainly in the first sort of attempts to do a little bit of retail therapy, and also to start to plan your garden year as well.
And the barbecue year, Chris. All this sunshine coming out, hopefully. Yes. Time to get the barbecue out and cleaned.
And the garden furniture as well, get that all nicely set up.
Check the pressure washer's still going.
Do check. Most definitely.
Brilliant. Good stuff. Okay. And what's going on in the news then?
So quite an interesting mix. And the first story I've got up, Peter, is about Mr. Titchmarsh now.
Okay.
Britain's favourite gardener has admitted that he doesn't tend to follow his own gardening advice, which I thought was quite a nice story.
Shocking.
Yes.
What a revelation. Well, listeners, you'd be pleased to know everything I say is the truth, and I really have no idea about gardening. Well, some of us do, like Chris, but not me. But what's Mr. Titchmarsh been doing?
Well, he's spilled the beans. It's in the Telegraph, actually, a bit earlier back on in March, but it's been well picked up by a lot of other newspapers. But basically he's saying that he's confessed that he doesn't really make use of all of his own gardening advice, and sometimes he does miss out on those key jobs. He has got I think it's a 3 or 4 acre garden, so I suppose that's
okay. Fair enough.
Down in Hampshire.
But I should imagine with his television schedule as well.
He's a busy man. Yeah,
hard to do things like keep the garden looking good at all times.
Yeah, but one thing which did make me slightly chuckle is that he's not immune to impulse purchase plants that he has no place for in the garden. So if you're out there and you come to your garden centre and you do your shopping, you think, I really need to buy that plant, but I actually haven't got somewhere for it to go, then you're not alone. Even the UK's best love gardening presenter does the same things. But it's interesting, isn't it, that we do sort of sometimes bare our soul when it comes to admitting things on the gardening front.
Well, to be honest with you, Chris, I think part of the joy of going shopping isn't it? It's like you see something in a nice display and it just grabs you and you think, I really need one of those. And then you sort of get home and you think, yes, maybe I didn't actually need that.
No, but at the time, that's the thing, yeah.
And ultimately, the best thing with plants is they tend to grow, don't they? So even if you haven't quite got the right mixture of colours in, you can plant it in with the wrong mixture of colours, and
that's very true.
It'll grow.
And I suppose in view of the fact we've lost quite a lot of plants this winter, a lot of people have going to have a few gaps to fill, as we're already seeing. But it's interesting, in the garden centre, Peter, we were doing some obviously new displays around the plant area, and it's a good how you can really display and show plants off, isn't it? So you get a lot of ideas for your own garden, whether it's combining plants together, creating those little those complementary plantings, and of course this is a great time of the year to be doing that when you've got a little bit of time on your hands.
Well, I was down the allotment chopping away at the brambles before they got growing again. I thought try and get them back into control after last year's free-for-all on my allotment, as they normally get. But just thinking about planting, Chris, I know I was hoping to get some root wrap roses in over the winter. I haven't got around to it yet. Am I too late now?
No, we have got you've got a bit of time, April, so you've got probably 2 or 3 weeks if you're really quick off the mark.
Okay, so if they're breaking bud, I'm still okay. If they've got probably
long shoots on, then
leaves and big long shoots, leave them.
Yeah, I mean, certainly the root wrap roses are in a better sort of state than, say, buying something bare rooted, because of course you've got those very tender fibrous roots, which of course when you lift get damaged. Because a root wrap rose has got a self-contained amount of compost around, you can then sort of move it quite safely into its planting hole. But a great opportunity to build up your collection. If you've got to plant a new rose bed, it's certainly the most cost-effective way of doing it too.
Excellent. Well, maybe I'd better pull my finger out then.
Yes,
get down and go and buy some. And now moving on to the news. It's really intriguing, this as a title, isn't it? Alien plant species now outnumber UK natives, a new study has revealed. What's this about then, Chris?
Yeah, so basically it's been a 20-year study highlighting the shifts in our UK flora.
Okay.
So this is basically under the name Plant Atlas 2020. It's looked at 30 million plants have been recorded, incredibly, using 9,000 botanists.
Okay.
I mean, the stats are sort of stacked up to look at basically 345,000 different species which have been recorded. So to get an idea of what's native in the UK, what's in peril, because this is the issue, isn't it? Yep. And how we are, how the flora and fauna is changing across the UK, and so it's even from the native plants like your heather and your harebell, your campanula, and obviously a lot of these have been lost due to human impact. So it's us humans have been obviously ripping out habitats, which have put them under a lot of pressure too.
And also, I suppose we possibly as a industry are a little bit guilty of polluting the native stocks, shall we say? Because I know when I first started here and I took up bulb buying, I had absolutely no idea, and I can remember my mother going absolutely mad when she checked through my sort of proposed order list that I was going to buy some bluebells that I thought looked quite pretty.
But of course,
they're not the native ones, and she was not happy with me and the idea of me garden centres selling Spanish bluebells. It's like, no, we sell British plants here, and we only want the British ones.
Indeed, and that's the problem with the Spanish bluebell. Of course, it's escaped, hasn't it? That's the thing; it's escaped into the habitats. It's now crossbreeding with the English bluebell, and that's what's seeing the rise of those sort of numbers. So. Yeah, it is important, and I think this sort of report highlights that quite literally. So we'll put the link to the report on our show notes, so you can get a full idea. But what other things they were saying, Peter, in this report is that there should be some national policy changes to help to reverse the decline of native species as well. And one thing which we get involved here at the garden centre and the nursery is obviously the
Stewardship?
That's the word. Scheme, which of course rewards farmers for restoring their habitats on their land. So obviously putting in native species of hedges, quickthorn, blackthorn, and they want to see a bit of a change there to revamp it, make it more attractive, shall we say, to do that, which I think is only a good thing.
Definitely.
And obviously to try and encourage more biodiversity, because ultimately that's what we all do. And as gardeners, of course, we're doing such a grand job of that anyway.
Without a doubt. And like you say, it's all about trying to create these pathways and what have you, rather than ripping out hedgerows, plant sort of more hedgerows and more trees, and the wildlife will come back, and that'll help repopulate the country with bugs and wildlife.
Indeed, and it's interesting. That's very true, Peter. And one of the last things they say is increasing opportunities to encourage children to learn to love plants. Because if you're doing all these things around you, and obviously this is something we're going to have to take to heart and really push for our native species, everybody will learn.
Without a doubt,
yeah.
Well, that's brilliant, good stuff. And I see Blue Diamond trying to expand into the National Trust market now, and they're going to launch their own range of National Trust plants and seeds and products. So
it's
interesting.
It is, Peter. It's a very interesting one. So the idea is that gardeners will be able to buy special plants which you would see in National Trust properties. Think about Sissinghurst, the wonderful Sissinghurst down in Kent, and that fantastic white garden. You'll be able to buy a selection of plants to replicate the essence of that particular garden. And they're going to be bringing out ranges of seeds and I suspect bulbs as well over this 5-year deal they've worked on. I think it's quite an interesting way of sort of pushing the brand, if you like, which of course these days we're all very familiar with that in garden centres, whether it's RHS seeds under the flagged up on the seed racks, which obviously are not grown by the Royal Horticultural Society, but they're branded, and that's a good way of getting the name across. So if it helps the National Trust, and I think they gain as well from sales as well, so they'll get a donation, which is obviously good as they are a charity status.
I mean that's it. I mean when we sell. I think Kettler was, I'm going to say, the first company that the RHS sort of got into bed with regards to furniture or garden furniture. I was like, well, it's a good brand. Not entirely sure people will pay sort of £20-30 or more just for a stamp, but it works in so many other markets that, maybe this is the way forwards for...
Yes.
Buying your white tulips, you need the National Trust badge on them.
Maybe, yes. It's how we are, I suppose, seduced as customers, isn't it, into that sort of state of mind. But however, there is another benefit from this. Obviously, they're going to benefit from all these wonderful plants, which are obviously on National Trust properties.
Well, I guess that's it. Once you've been round the gardens and you've been inspired by the gardens, now you can buy the plants to buy them as well, which is brilliant. I mean, at the end of the day, it's all good to be planting, isn't it, at the end of the day? And the more different and varied things that we can get, the better. And
it's interesting, Peter, the National Trust have a secret nursery, which they don't reveal where it is, where a lot of very old varieties of plants are being grown. And I got the impression from the press release I was reading that a lot of these plants over the next 4 years will start to appear. And of course they'll be exclusive to a garden centre group, which we're all familiar with now. Certain plants are that as well, and including in that, of course, is the Newton apple.
Oh yeah.
So this apple tree is based up in the family home of Woolsthorpe Manor up in Lincolnshire, and
that's where Newton lived, was it?
Apparently so. Yes.
I never knew that. Excellent.
So when
is that geography falling on my head?
Well, let's. The Blue Diamond are going to be offering a chance to bid to win 10 rooted cuttings or cutting raised plants from this tree, which is quite interesting. So this is an old tree, Peter, isn't it? I mean, when you look at the photos, the photo isn't particularly good.
Well, it's a massive great tree, isn't it?
It's like an oak tree, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, you wouldn't. I mean, but then that's if they really are doing cuttings. It's going to, hopefully the 10 people who win them have got big gardens, because from my memory, don't apple trees, if they're grown on their natural rootstocks, hit 30, 40...
They could get big,
50
huge.
Sort of foot tall, don't they? I
mean, they do, and that's probably the reason why we would obviously suggest, grafting them to control them.
You graft an apple tree, don't you?
You do.
Anyway, so Newton sat under his tree.
Yep.
Had an apple fall on him.
That's it.
Which was... Now... Did he name it the Flower of Kent, or was it already was the variety already well known?
I think anecdotally it was known as the Flower of Kent. It's a cooking variety, so it obviously it's
a big apple then.
It is.
That's why he came up with the word gravity.
as he was suffering from concussion.
It's better than a swear word, isn't it? Brilliant, good stuff.
So look out for this auction. There's only 10 lucky winners, and if you've got a big enough garden, or you've got a community, I suppose a community garden would be the place to win this, wouldn't it? Yeah. And if you've got an established orchard, that would take pride of place, and a nice wave to Mr. Isaac Newton.
That's it. And also, I suppose, if you've got one of the original Bramleys, I mean, that's another one that they've been trying to sort of propagate from and get more of the natural or the original plant to reproduce, because that's, I can't remember how many years old was it?
It's going on a few. And then, of course, we sell the garden centre here, bare rooted, a maiden of the Bramley's original. So that's original stockwood, which came from the plant, again as a way of keeping and preserving the genetics of that particular apple tree.
Excellent, because I think that's the crucial thing, isn't it, with apples, is that you can't grow them from seed.
Nope.
Because they don't grow
true to type.
Back to the apple you started with. That's it. Yeah. Cool, nice one. Good stuff. And see, Manchester's in the news for some new innovative parks. Now, looking at the pictures, they're not quite as sort of fantastic and enormously huge, shall I say, as the ones in Singapore that we read about a few months back. They're made out of massive wrought iron structures and
this is
hanging gardens and all sorts. This is a bit more...
This is more rustic, isn't it? This is a bit more industrial, and it's actually a part of the structure quite close to Piccadilly Station in Manchester, and it's basically they've created this 60-acre garden park, which is basically it's suspended across the city, and it's all been nurtured and collated by the National Trust, and they're bringing in a lot of plant material. They're suggesting, they're putting in lots of flower planting, 63,000 plants, wildflower meadow, ornamental grasses, 140 trees. 40 different species, so they're really going for it, and they're already suggesting that last year they had over 10,000 visitors to the park as well. So it's a Grade 2 listed Victorian structure, which has been
it's an old viaduct,
which has been and it's been reimagined, hasn't it? And I think that's really good in this day and age, that it's something which can be preserved, and obviously people can enjoy it in a different way to how it was obviously used originally to...
Back in the Victorian era, was it?
Yeah, Victorian,
it's like a sort of wrought iron or big old metal structure, which I guess is Victorian. But
yeah, it was built over 100 years ago, so it's certainly in that classification, isn't it? And obviously there's lots of work going around there, but it's the Mayfield Park near Piccadilly Station in the centre of Manchester, and they call it the Castlefield Viaduct. That's its tag when you look on the National Trust. So well worth having a look at.
Brilliant, nice one. And Strophocactus wittii. Or
that rolls off the tongue, doesn't it, Peter?
It's a nice, easy word, isn't it? Yeah, nice name. Moonflower.
That's a better name.
That's a bit easier to say. So the moonflower, which is grown over in Cambridge Botanic Gardens, along with 16 other botanic gardens around the world. So it's not very common, this moonflower, is it?
It's not rare in the wild, but it's rare in cultivation, as the article says. It's interesting, Peter, because this has actually happened now. This happened literally a few days ago. But if you go on YouTube, we'll put a link. You can see time-lapse on actually how the flower opens. It only lasts for a number of hours, maybe 12 hours, and then the flower fades and disappears.
So, and it flowers at night?
Well, that's what it should do, hence the name moonflower. However, in previous years, it's flowered during the afternoon. It suddenly made an appearance. So it is a little bit unreliable, but generally it should flower, normally flowers overnight.
Okay, so I guess in that case it's maybe pollinated by moths.
Yeah, exactly right, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's very, very specific. And it's a little bit different. We talk about cacti and cactus, but this one is a little bit like if you grow Christmas cacti or the Easter cacti, which will be flowering shortly. Very thin pads of cells. So instead of being sort of typical sort of barrel shaped, which are normal cacti, these are very, very thin. And they're epiphytic, so they actually grow up existing trees, and they parasitise the plants. So they use it as a climbing frame, if you like, to get to the top of the tree. And in doing that, they basically they're like huge suction pads, and they attach themselves, taking in moisture and nutrients from the environment epiphytically. And then, of course, if you're lucky, they produce flowers. So it's quite an unusual way of growing, and how it uses other plants to achieve its nutrients.
So does it have like roots in the soil, or is it literally more like, I'm thinking mistletoe?
A bit like mistletoe. Exactly
mistletoe just grows up in the tree, doesn't it? It doesn't have any contact with the soil.
No, it's just using the tree as a carrier. So exactly, unlike a lot of the cacti, like the orchids, like the Phalaenopsis orchid, exactly the same way, because that's an epiphytic orchid, as Manus always used to tell us on his when he did his talks, and it does really brings the plants together. So fascinating. I mean, it's just one of those wonderful weird bits of nature which, each time you hear about it really does enthrall you, doesn't it? It makes it. But plenty of information on our show notes on that.
I look forward to watching that, because I think time-lapse photography on something that's like that is brilliant.
And interesting, Peter, one of the time-lapses I noticed is that obviously the camera was there and people were actually looking at and obviously taking photos, so you get people of pictures with the flower as well as it goes through its various stages of life. So
fantastic. I'll have a look for that then. Brilliant. And our friends over at Frank Matthews have won an award.
Yes, it's what they call the Stanley Lord Bowl, and it's awarded, Peter, to the best exhibit of fruit shown at any of the Horticultural Society shows through that year. So this was picked up back in it was the autumn, wasn't it? The autumn fruits display at the Malvern show back in 2022. So, and from the picture, it was quite an amazing display.
There's quite a few different fruits they've got there. And is it all fruit, or is it just?
It is. It's all fruits. I think. Fruits in a variety of types. And of course, obviously, Frank Matthews supply a lot of our ornamental trees, but they also produce a lot of really good espalier and fan and cordon train fruits, which of course we sell here and which are available, across the whole of the UK. So they're a big player when it comes to all types of fruit trees. So it's just nice that they're getting some
recognition.
Indeed.
Well, and equally, if you want to learn a bit more about small trees or trees for small gardens, I think the podcast was called. We had an interview with Steve Dunn from Frank Matthews. I can't remember. Yes. Well, have a look through shows, and you'll find it.
Yes, I think it was the autumn, wasn't it? It was the autumn of a couple of years. Yeah.
It's called Trees for Small Gardens. I can remember that much.
Yeah, indeed, and excellent. And this time of the year, we're thinking about flowering cherry trees and things. Well, it might be one to just drop back. I think it was a popular choice at the time. But well done to Frank Matthews in their award.
It's really good to see the RHS and I guess the BBC and the sort of big players in the garden show industry are finally going towards a more greener future. And I mean, they're talking about sort of using cardboard boxes now instead of plastic, and simple things that obviously help to make the world a less plasticky place, isn't it?
Indeed,
Really good.
It is, Peter. And I think they've been a little bit slow off the mark, really, being a bit honest, haven't they? Because obviously a lot of places even using, obviously using, going away from plastic cutlery as well, in there. Because
single-use cutlery now is I don't think you can use it anymore, can you? Or there's a ban coming up on it. And,
so that's...
And I know our industry, in the sort of catering industry, should I say, has been using sort of bamboo stuff for quite a long time. It's commonplace nowadays. Even the likes of Costa and their single-serve cups are made out of recycled materials, which... It's all good.
It's all good.
It's
a positive.
Yeah, it's only about time these big show organisers got in line and joined the show, and no artificial grass as well.
No, my word.
That's about time.
Indeed, a long time. Yeah, but I suppose at the end of the day, Peter, on the sustainability front, about obviously gardens, being repurposed, shall we say, after the flower shows.
Yeah.
So, likes of Chelsea and Hampton Court. A lot of these shows then these gardens move on and built brick by brick elsewhere. And I was listening to good old Lindengate, our fairly local mental health charity over in Aylesbury. They've benefited from a garden which they're having rebuilt at their site. So that's a definite positivity from the situation, isn't it?
Without a doubt. Because, I mean, when these garden designers put the show gardens on at Chelsea, I mean, they look amazing.
They do.
And you do sometimes question what they look like in sort of 5-10 years' time. But I guess if you dig them up and move them to somewhere else, you can actually see that. And if the garden designer's done a good job, they'll look even better in 10 years because the plants look properly established and look really good. But
they'll probably be spaced at different spacings to what they do at the flower shows.
You think they might ease them out and make them twice the size, 4 times the size?
Indeed, yeah. But it's good. And I think, I think one of this particular article was saying about the Bruin Dolphin Garden, which was created last year. That actually showed all the areas of sustainability in one garden. It was like a statement piece, and hopefully that mantra will be thrown to all the new garden designers or garden designers considering to build gardens now, to put that into their brief to make sure that they are making something which will work across all levels.
Brilliant. And in the vein of like recycling and reusing things, I see there's a floating islands at
it's over in Singapore, isn't it? They're developing this idea. This is where areas are land strapped, and they create these wonderful floating islands, which are basically using plastic bottles.
Yes, so Coca-Cola bottles, I guess. PET bottles, aren't they? Cool,
so they're creating these sort of rafts, if you like, and then obviously putting in a growing material and then growing the crops in those. And as you said, Peter, they would have to be in fresh water for them to grow well.
Yeah, they won't work very well in the sea, will they?
No, a bit limited.
Mangrove swamps, maybe, but I guess if you've got masses of water, and I don't know, I'm trying to think where in the world obviously Lake Malawi and Tanganyika and sort of a few big
inland lakes.
But I suppose even Canada's got Great Lakes. They could grow some crops. They could for growing wheat, isn't it, over in that part of the world?
Yes,
See a combine harvester out in the middle of
that would be an interesting sight, wouldn't it?
Lake Ottawa. I can't see it somehow, but it's good as at least we're trying, I suppose. At least we're trying.
Indeed.
And I see Amateur Gardening have run a interesting article about, well, I guess keeping your costs down, really, isn't it? I mean, obviously, we all like a bargain, and at the end of the day, what they've done is a price comparison of some of the more, let's say, higher profile garden products, things like Tomorite Q4, Miracle Grow, Aftercut, Grow More. And the thing I find interesting about it is that they've used the big brands to start off with, rather than using own brands and sort of the likes of, I mean, Tomorite, don't get me wrong, fantastic product, great fertilizer, full of nitrogen, gives you really good tomatoes.
Yep.
The Doff equivalent,
yes,
it's the only one I've ever tried, if I'm totally honest with you. I'm a cheapskate. And I looked at the MPK.
Probably very similar. Yep.
Very similar. Both of them have got trace elements.
And they've got seaweed in them. Yep, which is the key.
But as the article pointed out, very interesting that if you buy your Tomorite in Home Bargains, you're paying $3.99 for it. Or if you bought it in Gold's near Weymouth, $7.49.
Big price differences, so it does pay to shop around, doesn't it?
And how much are we for a litre of Tomorite, Chris? Did you look at
$4.99.
$4.99, so only £1 more than Home Bargains. And
actually, our 1 litre is actually 1.2 litres, so you actually get a little bit more for your money as well. So
there you go.
Yeah.
But then equally, I wondered, I haven't got the price on the tip of my tongue, but I bet the Doff one's a couple of pounds cheaper.
It is. I think it's $3.99. Well, it was last season, wasn't it? $3.99 for a litre. So,
I'm sure the likes of maybe Home Bargains doesn't have their own brand stuff, but I'm sure the likes of Dobbies or some of the bigger garden centres do have a different offer that essentially is the same thing.
Yes.
And I mean, Vitax Q4. Great for my potatoes. Always put a little sprinkle in with the potatoes.
Excellent. Yep. Time to be doing that now. Yep.
Anywhere between £4.50 at home base up to $11.99 at Hilliers,
which is a massive difference, isn't it? Yeah.
But I mean, home base, that's incredibly cheap. So I'm guessing they've had a big push, or they're doing a big promotion on it or something.
Yeah,
but
indeed.
Isn't that the thing with cost saving? If you do a little bit of phoning around and do a little bit of research, somebody who's maybe got a furniture set the same as somebody else, you can save a good amount of money on it. And if you got some free minutes on your mobile phone and 10 minutes spare, give all your local garden centres a ring before you go out shopping, and maybe ask them, what is the price of something?
I think, Peter, don't you think we're doing that with so many things when we go do our normal food shopping? It's the same. It's the same mentality, really, to anything high purchase values. And it's interesting. Those 5 products there are things are what I would call consumables, things you might need to buy more of, maybe through the growing season. So as we know, sometimes you've got to speculate to accumulate. So buy a bigger pack if it works out cheaper on the literage or the weight. Because you're going to be using it.
I'm guessing. I know compost. Ideally, you want to buy it the season that you're using it.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
But things like, I guess, fertilizers. I mean, the pelleted and the granulated ones, if they're kept dry and they're not opened, I'm guessing they're going to be good for a few years. Liquid ones, again, keep them out of the sunshine. If you're like me and your shed it goes from sort of -5 in the winter to 35 degrees in the summer because it gets baked in the sunshine, possibly not the best place to keep it.
No.
So keep it in a nice, stable environment, and it'll last a couple of years. And that way, like you say, buy a bigger tub or box.
If you know you're going to use it, it seems very, very wise. But so do a bit of speculative buying and do your research. I think that's the key. And the article, I think, is really good at homing in on that as well. And look at own brands if you're in any doubt or you want to save any more money.
Yeah, why not? I mean, at the end of the day, the likes of Wilkinsons and they're big companies. They're not. I'm not saying they're going to be quite as good as the premium brand ones, but they're not going to be far off it.
Yeah. And as I always say, Peter, you may be able to buy cheaper, but if you need the advice to go with it, then obviously your friendly independent garden centre takes a bit of beating, really, doesn't it? Yeah.
Unfortunately, for you listeners out there who want to actually learn about how to plant something, do come and ask, because that's what we're here for.
Indeed.
And obviously the Royals are in the news a lot at the moment. Harry's released his book. Have you read that, Chris?
I haven't, unfortunately. I've just seemed to have missed that one at the moment. Yes.
Well, we've got Coronation coming up, haven't we, soon?
Next month, yes.
Yeah, not far away, and a nice bank holiday that'll be. Mm-hmm. But I see, well, we all know Prince Charles loves nature and he's very into gardening and what have you. And he's giving Sandringham a bit of a makeover, isn't he?
Yes.
I mean, the West Lawn.
Yeah,
how wonderful is it?
I mean, it's a big
lawn named after a compass point. Not the West Wing.
Not West Wing.
Lawn.
No, that's a different country.
But he's digging it up anyway.
Yeah. And it's a half hectare as well, this lawn. It's not small, is it, by any stretch of the imagination? Yeah, it was previously dug up back in the Second World War to grow vegetables, and now it's going to be reimagined as a very formal. I mean, the photograph, Peter, sort of says formality, doesn't it? If you're thinking of topiary and
it's beautiful.
It's amazing.
Just the fact that he's had someone build him a little model of it before they've even started work or what have you. I think it's brilliant.
Fantastic.
And looking, like you say, very formal, sort of lots of lines and triangles and
topiary and
beds. Beds sort of surrounded by what looks like little dwarf, maybe box hedging or something like that.
Similar, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, well, fair play to him.
Yeah.
Why not?
And I noticed here that it's going to be designed to cope with climate change as well. So he's obviously very aware of that, and obviously improved biodiversity, which obviously is what King Charles is all about, isn't he? He's very biodiversity in all his projects, especially over at Highgrove too.
Well, you can't see many trees or models that look the same, put it that way. So I'm hoping they're all, like you say, sort of lots of different types of
I'm sure there will be,
yes,
yeah. But
encourage the wildlife and what have you.
Yeah.
But look very formal by the look of it as well. So.
Most definitely, yes. I mean, something to look forward to. I'm sure we'll see it develop on the TV over time. But sandringhamestates.co.uk, if you want any more information, I'm sure there'll be more information on that website too, which we'll put on our show notes.
Brilliant. And I found it really interesting that Mr. Fothergill's seeds, who we stock and really do quite well with, also trying to sort of target the tech savvy amongst us. I mean, obviously, all you listeners out there have already clocked how to get into podcasts and learn the joys of gardening and researching through the internet, which personally I think is fantastic. It's such a great resource. Yeah. But Fothergills are going that way as well.
Yeah, they're going for the generation or the Gen X gardeners,
not Z,
X. X, yeah, indeed. Yes, so
Zs are the really young ones, aren't they?
I think so. Yeah, they're probably not going to be listening to podcasts just yet. No, yeah. But no, this is a great initiative. So basically, it's all about windowsill gardening, and let's face it, that's how most of us start. Well, we all start growing some seeds, whether it's mustard and cress, like we were chatting about earlier.
We're talking about my successes or failures, should I say, about trying to grow mustard with my two children, and the utter failure of it. And I guess
it's a starting place, isn't it?
It's where we all start, and then we grow sunflower, and then we maybe branch out into tomatoes or something like that.
But at the end of the day, it's a windowsill. It'll have light. It might have a radiator, or it might have a heat source below it. So it's a perfect propagation point to start your seeds, and that's what the whole initiative, this PR campaign is. With David Dominy, he's heading it, and there's a really good YouTube video which I was watching today, Peter, which sort of introduces it, and I think it's a really good initiative for gardeners of all ages. I think that's the thing. You'll sort of relate to it, but they are basically saying that they've done obviously quite a lot of research, and they do realise that there is an emerging trend now for the desire to get gardening. We know that from obviously the pandemic, the 2 million new gardeners, which obviously came on board over the last 2 or 3 years. So it's just a matter of building those numbers, isn't it? And
that's it. And it's so much fun growing seeds. I'm always I've got to go and sow my broad beans because. Dare I say, a month ago you put it on the job list, I'm thinking, Still haven't got around to doing it, so I definitely need to soak my broad beans and try and get them growing again. But it's always fun when you do put the seeds in the compost and suddenly something sprouts, and I always love it when I grow mine in cell packs quite often, just because I like to see how many I can get to germinate. So if I've got like 12 little cells in the cell pack, and I get 10 come up,
that's like, a good result.
I've actually done it this year. But I said earlier, the mustard, I can get 12 in a whole tray.
but unfortunately, I think that experience of growing on the windowsill can sometimes come at a price, and obviously when we have problems on our seedlings as well. And I'm sort of thinking here when we're talking
about damping off here, Chris.
I'm edging
towards
there's botrytis, different forms where you're perhaps a bit overzealous with your sowing. You've sown too many seeds in the seed tray or in the pot,
right?
And they've been competing for light, and you've got poor air circulation, and the poor seedlings just can't cope, and they usually wither. Usually at root level, they'll just literally topple over.
So is this? I can always remember my grandfather. He used to have like those seed trays and the propagation.
The domes,
that sit on top of them, and they've got like the little air vents.
At the top,
What he used to do was, I'm trying to remember when it was. I'm guessing after they'd just started growing, he used to get a pencil or 4 pencils and put them around the edge.
Right.
So it lifted the top of the propagation lid off a little bit, which I guess reduces the humidity just a little bit, but still keeps a little bit of the warmth and
that's what you want.
That must have been why. So he wanted the air, a bit more air movement and a bit more, but he still has some protection.
And I think these wonderful propagators we get are very sort of tight fitting, aren't they? There's no real give. There's no.
They fit well.
So they fit well, which is what they're meant to do. However, it can be the detriment of the plants if they're not perhaps opened up. And like I was saying before, Pete, it's a good idea just to take the lid off, maybe let it dry out, or wipe down any of the condensation, then pop it back on, so you remove some of the extra moisture, obviously around the propagating lid.
Okay.
And of course, just be careful with your watering as well. Don't be overzealous with the watering. Keep the compost just moist as the seedlings emerge.
Because we sell those humidity meters, don't we?
We do indeed, yeah.
Sorry to put you on the spot here, Chris, but do you know off the top of your head what the perfect sort of humidity is for propagating or germinating a seed, even not propagating?
Yeah, well, obviously 100% would be a rainforest, isn't it? So it's going to be probably around about 50 to probably 75%, isn't it? Okay. I would have thought, as a ballpoint, but I mean it's a combination of humidity and of course soil temperature, isn't it? So if you've got a really nice propagator with some heated,
the fancy ones have got the heated elements underneath, and if you couldn't quite afford that when you started off, you can buy heating cables.
You can, which
soil
is cables.
A way to upgrade your propagator without too much expense. They're still, I think, £15 odd or so, the heated cables.
Yeah. Maybe a lot more to run these days, might be. Unfortunately, yes. But no, these heat mats are pretty good, and they only use literally a few watts of electricity, so it's a gentle heat, isn't it? And that's probably what you want. And maybe like we're into the month of April now. Most things will you sow now will germinate quite naturally anyway. It's only when we're trying to sow seeds out of season, during December and January, what we have to worry about sort of temperatures. So
just a standard propagator on the windowsill, and don't let it get too moist.
That's it, yeah. And once you compost now obviously are peat-free, so get yourself a good compost which is maybe aimed at seed sowing, which we would obviously mention at the garden centre here, and use some nice good quality compost. Use a bit of vermiculite or perlite to put over the top of your seeds. It's worth paying a little bit more money.
Because you were saying earlier, we were talking about this, that to germinate seeds, you don't want a nutrient-heavy compost at all. It's got to be really quite bland.
Indeed.
Am I allowed to use that word?
Yeah, bland. Basically, not very, 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 very thin of nutrients, because you don't want the nitrogen, which obviously will stimulate lots of growth, because that can sometimes be at the detriment of growth. A good example, Peter, which I remember from my years when I was growing bedding plants, antirrhinums would topple over if the compost had too much nutrients in it. They were very, very sensitive. You probably get away with marigolds and zinnias and cosmos, because they're quite tough, stocky little seeds, but very small seeds are more susceptible to these diseases. We used to have a product called Chesant Compound, which, going back to my days, which was based on copper sulfate. That's of course gone now. So we've got nothing we can preventatively apply to our soils to keep these nasty soil pathogens at bay. It's just down to good clean husbandry.
It's good hygiene.
Hygiene,
Isn't it?
it is. Yeah.
If you're reusing pots and seed trays,
nice and clean.
Can you give them a rinse in Jay's fluid? Are we still allowed to recommend that?
I think we can, because it's not Jay's fluid as it used to be. It's a lot more.
It's a new version.
It's a new version.
It's a greener version.
It's got no tar oils in it. It's got no creosote based products in it, so it's a lot safer. But
still wear rubber gloves though.
I would do. Yeah. Or you could use Dettol or something similar. A household disinfectant is absolutely fine.
Okay, I'd not thought of that. Cause, you think that spray the kitchen work surface down with.
It's the same difference. As long as you don't have any build up, it's washed. You don't
wash it back off again.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. So nice clean environment.
Yep.
And no spiders or cobwebs or bits of dirt left over from last year.
No. And then
a nice mild compost.
Yeah, and then once you've
compost.
Seed compost. Yeah, a seed and cutting compost. So there's plenty of those out there, and you can often buy just small packets of those, because you probably won't be doing lots of propagation, but you want to do a few things well, so it's worth spending a few more pennies on doing getting the right sort of compost for the seeds you're putting in.
Brilliant, nice one. Thanks for those tips. And what other jobs have we got on our list, Chris?
Right, well, yes, more seed sowing, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And there's quite a few on the list here, so I was just going to have a look on there. We're talking about vegetable growing, so plenty of things. We're into April now, so you can get your tomatoes, your courgettes.
Okay.
I know courgettes and marrows, all those can be sown now, because they're going to take 6 weeks to get to a decent size for planting out in the middle of May. So those are good. Sweet corn can be on your list too.
Okay.
I know you like your sweet corn.
I love my sweet corn. Yep. I hadn't even thought about it being ready to plant yet. I suppose now. I guess. Are we finished with frosts for this year?
This is going to be a bit of a tricky one. April can be precarious, so just make sure if you're doing the seed sowing indoors or in your small little greenhouses, just have some extra fleece to hand to protect there as well.
Cool. And I guess sweet peas. Yeah, it must be about that time of year.
Yeah, if you didn't sow them back in the autumn, which we'd sort of recommend you do, only because you get a head start and you've got them in flower a few weeks early. But yes, get your sweet peas, whether you soak them overnight or you nick them with a sharp penknife. That's the two different ways you can do that. But yes, put them into your compost. Use root trainers. That's what I tend to do at home now. Put 2 or 3 seeds per cell.
Right, okay.
And let all 3 or 2 grow and nip them out when they're probably maybe 5-6 centimetres tall to stimulate them to produce some nice shoots at the bottom.
Side growth,
and then grow them on, and then ready for planting out. In sort of a month or two's time. But it's perfect. And I just noticed today, Peter, that we've got some actually coming into the garden centre now. So if you feel a little bit lazy, you don't want to grow them from seed. You can buy them as ready plants. Obviously, like Spencer types. There's varieties for hanging baskets, and obviously the heirloom varieties as well. So plenty of different choices for something to buy as a ready grown plant.
And dahlias?
So dahlias, yes. So dahlia tubers. My own bit of advice there, Peter. I would always sort of soak them for an hour or 2 before you plant them, because they do get a little bit dry.
Right.
In retail situations by the nature, they're usually in plastic, but I usually do that, and that just helps to absorb the water and just plumps the tuber, because that's what it is. It's a stem tuber, and then you're then ready to plant out. Just watch the weather. Start them off in pots if you can, or in trays. As long as it's frost-free and nice and light. A lot of these small lean-to little greenhouses are perfect for doing that. You can just set them up there and get them going, and you'll have some really good plants then to plant out later on as well.
Well, they're a lovely flower. I do love a dahlia. I mean, there's a couple of plots on our allotment that's got, I don't know how many different flavours or varieties that they have, but every summer you go up there and it's like
fantastic, big
band of colour. across the bit that they're growing dahlias in.
And they're so rewarding, and you can use them for cut flowers, and they just flower. They flower right through to the frost as well, don't they? So that's good as well. And I suppose whilst we're talking about bulbs, Peter, maybe we could just do a little diversion for our Dig It top 5 this month.
Well, this month.
Even.
Was selling? We finished we much the bulb season now, haven't we? So what was the best sellers in bulbs?
Going back in reverse order, and we've actually mentioned just quite recently, actually in our chat, number 5 was the English Bluebell.
English.
Yep.
Not Spanish.
Not Spanish. No.
Don't sell those.
No. Number 4, Narcissi Tête-à-Tête in 6 packs. So good value.
Okay.
Yeah. Number 3, the Winter Aconite, the wonderful yellow Winter Aconite.
They're very popular at the moment. I mean, you see them in amongst the crocuses, and they do look lovely.
They do look fantastic, don't they, as well? And at number 2, snowdrops. Surprise. I saw a lot of snowdrops there.
Now, is that the pure white one? Because I've noticed there's a lot of sort of greeny formed. I don't know how you pronounce how you describe it, but it's a white flower with sort of green petals or variations, should we call them, on the standard. They're certainly making more of a presence in the market now, aren't they?
Yeah, the one which came in the second place was Nivalis, which is the sort of the common old gold, the pure white one, but very popular. And at number 1, 1 litre size pots of Tête-à-Tête, so bigger instant pots. So
that's interesting, because in the autumn we're going to have a new range in from Capitaine, which are instant planters.
Okay.
So essentially, you buy. I haven't seen them yet, but from the point of sale, it looks like it's literally the pot with all the contents ready to go. You just take it outside, put it where you want it to grow, give it a bit of water, and hopefully it'll come up.
That's interesting.
But instant planters are clearly the way forward. And, I mean, to be fair, we found that with the drop-in planters in hanging baskets.
The pop-ins. They're very
10 years ago, I don't think they'd even hit the market. Now
they're an important.
The last 5 years, I'll say, we've never been able to get enough.
Indeed.
Because they are so brilliant.
That's
So definitely look out for those in your garden centres in the next month or so. Because generally week 16, week 17.
They start coming through.
April. They start coming in. So hanging baskets are on the horizon.
I know, quite scary. So but it's interesting. I mean, the potted spring bulbs have sold through now. We can see what we sold, and it's variety. There's, just below there's lots of tulips and some of the more unusual varieties, Camassias. So people do like the variety when it comes to spring bulbs. Yep.
Well, that's it. And Tête-à-Tête, it's not your standard daffodil, is it?
No, it's not. No, it's quite a choice, but it's
lovely little one, and it looks nice. But
for instant results, or just dropping in a pot where you've got a nice spot on your patio or your deck, ideal, isn't it?
Well, if they grow.
Well, that's it. They need.
Like my slow-growing snowdrops that still haven't come into flower.
Really? Oh, it's going to be a little bit of a late winter for
honestly, winter in Northampton, I'm not sure it's finished yet, but hopefully they'll make it into flower soon.
Dear. And other jobs, Peter. I mean, everybody's been asking about herbs. Well, they start to appear obviously in the next few weeks, but a lot of people want to replant. Obviously, a lot of people have lost their rosemary and their thymes, especially with the harsh December weather we had. So
my rosemary, I was looking at it out watering the plants the other day, Chris. You'd be pleased to hear. And honestly, my rosemary has lost a lot of its sort of vibrant colour. It looks a bit. Can I say old and knackered?
It's a bit tired.
Tired is a better way of saying it, isn't it? But what? Can I put some food? I mean, what's the best way? I repotted it, I think, last year, which must be a treat. I mean, it's been with us a good 5 years and got its first repot and did really well last year. But this year it's just looking rubbish again. Shall I cut it right back? Should I? Yeah,
the trouble. Yeah, if it's got stems which are looking black or grey and looking just generally a little bit grey. Give the plant a trim back. Give it a feed. Give it maybe a liquid feed, bit of tomato feed, good old tomato feed. That'll help to stimulate growth. A lot of plants were hit back because they put so much growth on last year. And of course, that very cold snap of minus 10, 12, 14 degrees, which we had across the UK, has hit plants really hard. And of course, rosemary is a Mediterranean plant, so it's not
it's quite a
surprising.
tropical plant. I mean, certainly the stems, when you see it on holiday, and it's that lovely dark green sort of foliage with a really woody stem.
Yep.
Yeah, mine doesn't look like that.
No, it needs a bit. So,
I'll give it a feed and see what happens.
And that should bring that there. And I mean, I know we're in April, but a lot of people still probably haven't, pruned back their buddleias. You still got chance.
Okay.
They're mine and romping away. I had to trim back mine the other week, but go give those a cut back so you get some nice strong flowering stems on those as well.
Yep.
And obviously a little bit of lawn carers now. Obviously now we're into the lawn growing season. Yeah. So the usual aerating, spiking, raking. And
just a scarifier, isn't it?
It is.
If you've got a scarifier or you fancy renting one and ruining your lawn for another couple of months, that's what mine did anyway.
Oh dear. And maybe a bit of reseeding then.
I think that's where the bit I forgot to do. I just scarified it.
But get on with those sort of jobs and work with the weather. Traditionally April showers, so it's good time to apply your fertilisers on there as well. And obviously plenty, you can go for a granular one or a liquid one, depending on how big your lawn is, really, how easy it's going to be to apply.
Well, I know we talked about my firework patch from last month. I did notice one of the patches is starting to grow back and the other one's still all white and dead. So I've decided I'm going to get the rake out, pull all the old grass out, and then put some fresh seed on and see if I can reseed that area. And I will pay note and try and blend the seed in with the surrounding grass.
That's the secret, isn't it?
All looks the same, hopefully. But we'll wait and see. I'll keep you updated on that.
Good,
see whether
I
get around to doing that and planting the sweet corn and the rose that I need to plant.
Okay,
we've got a busy month ahead of me, haven't I, Chris?
Yeah, and it's good to do that. All in all, we have got a busy month, and I think the thing is to keep focused. You're not going to do everything. That's the thing in gardening. You're not going to do everything.
I haven't done anything.
So prioritise. And so you said. So my job for this month is going to be revamping all my formiums, which got killed in the winter.
You said you lost a few formiums.
Yeah, 14 I've lost in total. So I'm going to be revamping 14 containers over the next few weeks. So that's going to be quite a big job, but it's got to be done, and that will keep me busy for a while.
Well, that's it. The evenings are getting lighter now. This is what I keep on telling myself. So I'll be able to get out in the garden for an hour when I get home.
Oh, at least,
It's been raining, so I haven't managed to. Hopefully it won't be raining in the whole of April, and we will get out and do some jobs.
Yeah, and let's look forward to it, because April is a great month, and obviously things are just starting to flower lovely. I mean, the Forsyth has been great. We'll have things like the Philadelphus, the mock orange, and all sorts of lovely shrubs, and the Clematis montana's doing their thing very, very soon. So plenty to look forward to.
Brilliant. Okay, well, thank you as always for all of your great suggestions, Chris. I will try and get on and do a couple of the jobs that
I shall ask next month, Peter. I will. I'll hold you to that.
Good stuff. Thanks,
you.
then.
Today's show was brought to you by Buckingham Garden Centre and Nurseries. The show was hosted by Chris Day and Peter Brown. The show was produced by Peter Brown. And our thanks to Chiltern Music Therapy for providing the music. Thanks for listening.
At Chiltern Music Therapy, we want everyone to know the difference that music can make in their lives. From parents and their premature babies in hospital to grandparents with dementia. We provide music therapy and community music services to people of all ages and needs across England. We work both digitally and in person in people's homes, care homes, schools, hospitals and hospices. Find out more at chilternmusictherapy.co.uk.